So I'm going to talk about GoldenGate Free, and we have a nice demo for you today. So let's start by introducing GoldenGate Free. So we had a few goals in mind when we created this. First, we wanted to get you a solution that is quick to install, quick to set up, by providing you with a container, with a Docker container that you can quickly pull from the container registry without having to install and configure and set up. And the next goal was to make it really easy to use, get up and running in a matter of minutes. And I'm going to show you today, because I'm going to show you all the steps from nothing and with two databases that are not configured for GoldenGate on the source and the target in less than 15 minutes. And you see here on the right side, the architecture. We are using a fully featured GoldenGate 21C as part of this Docker container. We have some restrictions that I'm going to mention. And on top of this, we have a GoldenGate free application, which provides you with a recipe-based user experience, which basically front ends the GoldenGate infrastructure. And through this, you can use recipes. We start out with one recipe of having a unidirectional replication. And going forward, we're going to have many more recipes. We have a lot in our pipeline, such as bidirectional, such as data lake loading, such as microservices, architecture related recipes. We also are planning to support more and more databases and big data environments on the source and the target. So we're starting out with Oracle, but more will come going forward. And the last one, which the name already says, it is free, which is a great thing for everybody. So you can use it without having to basically upfront pay. You can try it out. It is great for getting to know it, for demos, for simple use cases. So it's actually, it is full featured if you see the restrictions. So for example, we have a restriction of 20 gigabyte databases, but you can use it for production if you want to. With these restrictions, we provide community forum support. It's not regular Oracle support and no regular, the regular patch updates. And another thing is we don't support the interoperability with other commercial GoldenGate deployments. So we can't mix and match this, for example, with GoldenGate for big data or other commercial GoldenGate for Oracle or other GoldenGates, for example. So let's take a look at the product itself. So let's start the demo, and I've taken a little bit of the theme because I know that Jeff loves jet fighters, and so we're going to go ahead with this theme. And so let's start with the demo.
I hope our demo goes a little bit better than those guys are going with their demo.
I very much hope so.
Yeah, let's shoot for the Top Gun demo.
Yep. All righty. So we're going to be available through the Oracle Container Registry, the container-registry.oracle.com. We're not yet, because we're not live. We plan to go live in the next several days. We didn't quite reach it to get live for today, but stay tuned. It's going to come soon. And we're going to have a GoldenGate area here as well. And so, for example, if you take the example of database XE, it's in here. You can read the documentation. It tells you exactly how to create it. You don't have to download anything here. It actually gives you an address that you can use in order to use your Docker environment to pull it and to run it. So if you have a Docker environment, that's all you need. And it also works with Docker compatible, for example, Podman. So if you have Oracle Linux, you automatically have Podman as well. For example, on an Oracle image, I didn't have to install anything. So GoldenGate is going to look like this, where you have the documentation. We give you the run commands. We explain the options that you have when doing the Docker run commands. And using this, let's get started with the actual demo. We can use a Docker run command like this one on the command line. Just use an address where we're pulling from. This is an internal address for now. You're going to use the public Oracle Container Registry address in the future. You give the an admin name, you can provide a password here, or if you don't, it will be generated for you. So let's get started here. So it kicks off the Docker run command. If you want to follow what's going on, you can use the Docker logs, and it will give you the log. It actually starts up in about 10-15 seconds. So you see here as it goes through. And as you see that our app server gives you the all clear, then it's all started up. You see here, our Halidon app server is all through. So now we can go to a web interface. And since I'm running on the machine on port 80, all I have to do is basically HTTP the machine that I'm on. And I have the GoldenGate free user interface. I'm using the login and the password that I used when I did the Docker run. And this is the instance we just installed. And it basically gives you guidance how you can get started. You start by creating the database connections, then you create a pipeline, you configure it, and you're starting it. So we're going to create connections for source and target database. We give it a name. Then we take the host name, the port number, we give the name of the CDB, the service name. We can use DBA privileges if we use them. We can actually browse through the PDBs of the database. So in this list, there is only one PDB. We'll use it, but it's convenient if you have more complex systems. Then you create a GoldenGate admin user. You provide it with a password. If the database is already pre-configured for GoldenGate, you're using somebody's database that's already all set up, you give the existing username. Otherwise, you basically create a new username and a new password. So since this is a new user, we know the validation will fail. I'll run it anyway, just to show how it works. If it would be a fully configured database, this would all go fine. So it gives you the information that the testing the database didn't work out because we don't have the user yet. So that's okay. We'll go to the next step. And now we can actually configure the database from the ground up to make it fully functional with GoldenGate. So first, we already gave DBA privileges earlier, so the system knows we have them. So we're running an analysis on your database, and it finds out which settings are still required, and it generates a SQL script for you that you can review here. You actually should review it, because if this database is important at all, you want to know what's happening to it. So there are a few alter system commands and a few more commands to actually set up your database. All the grants that are necessary for the GoldenGate users are all in here. And you can either, you acknowledge that you have read it, you can either run it right now, you can download it and maybe give it to review to DBAs just to make sure. But if you're fine, if this is a simple system, you can just run it now and it will set up your database. And by the way, I'm testing this here on vanilla databases that I also pulled from the container registry, so they're not at all set up for GoldenGate. So the scripts ran successfully. So now I'm creating the source connection. Let me quickly walk through and do the same for the target.
So just while you're doing the target, Alex, as you said before, these databases that you're connecting to, these could be vanilla blank databases that also just come from container registry, but they could also be existing databases that already have GoldenGate configured for them. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And if they are already configured, we just validate just to make sure that it's really fully configured. If it's not, we'll find out. So you don't have to basically run GoldenGate to find out and to run into a problem. We're validating it for you right away.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if not, we'll custom tailor a script for you.
So the purpose of these scripts here are that, if you're working in a complex business unit where there's, a different DBA group or something like that, you can essentially download and show the DBAs what these scripts are, right?
Correct. Yes. This way you have full transparency what's happening with your database, and you're not doing any risks by basically overwriting or changing any configurations you did for a purpose.
Okay.
So we created source and target, so we're done with connection creation. And now we create a pipeline. So I'm pressing create pipeline here. And there's one recipe for now, the one-way database replication. As I said, there'll come more, but this already gives you full flexibility to do all kinds of one-way database replications. We're giving the pipeline a name. And then the only thing you have to do is pick the connection. Since we only have two, and they're actually tagged for being source and target, they're actually pre-filled nicely because we have only one choice here right now. If there would be more choices, you could pick. And now I press save and configure. And I'll see the setup of the pipeline. I see a diagram that it goes from source to target through a one-way database replication. And I do see all the schemas in the source database. Now I can go ahead and pick what I want to move. I can remove any tables I don't want. I can remove any schemas I don't want. It actually shows me that these particular tables are not found on the target schema, so that's good to know. And one important part here is that we also do the initial load. So we're not just doing pure replication and expect somebody else to do the initial load. We do it as well. And we're doing it through data pump. So we also orchestrate data pump with the correct handover so that we're picking the correct SCN to basically not lose any data in the process. So you have created some mapping rules. You could even rename the tables on the target side if you wanted to. And you can see it in this graphical tree, or you can see it as part of rules. If you feel more comfortable writing rules, you can do it here. You can add rule, you can delete rules, you can change rules here. And you can also set a variety of options here. This is not the full GoldenGate option set, but a selected option set for this purpose. And this is all based on the recipe. So the recipe decides what kind of options are exposed. And here is the initial load. You can switch it on and off. And so this is all you have to set up. So we're now ready to actually run the GoldenGate. So we have saved. We're now at the overview step. You see the initialization steps. So let me start everything. And it goes through the initialization steps now. One of the initialization steps is the whole initial load as well.
So that's cool to see the all the steps running as they're going. I imagine the initial load one here, that's probably gonna take a minute or two while that completes, or how big are these databases that you've, I guess they have to be under 20, right?
They're a modest size. It's gonna finish in about 3 minutes.
Gotcha. Yeah, and there will be, so I guess you mentioned the restrictions up front. So this tool, the application and GoldenGate will be checking to make sure that the source and target databases are under 20, was it 20 gigabytes?
That's correct.
Okay. And then, for the data pump capabilities, I guess in the past, we've had the initial load jobs that can run within GoldenGate, and that's still there. But maybe tell us a little bit why we opted to use data pump here, and then, what other cloud services do you look after that might also be doing something similar?
So we're using data pump because this is also the pattern we're using for database migration. We have the OCI database migration and the zero downtime migration in Oracle, which are all using this combination of GoldenGate and data pump as a very efficient way of doing initial load. Once we will support heterogeneous GoldenGate pipelines, we'll also use the GoldenGate initial load, which enables you to do initial loads across different database vendors. But for this, if we do like, we have the opportunity to use the native tools in order to be as efficient as possible.
Got it. Yeah, so you mentioned the future roadmap for more recipes. And I think you also mentioned the future roadmap for more source and target technologies. These are kind of orthogonal to each other, right? Like, for example, you could add Postgres or MySQL, and they could stay in this one-way database replication recipe, right? So you can add sources and targets without necessarily having to add recipes. Is that right?
That's correct. As we go and support more sources and targets, we will enhance the recipes to be able to support different kinds of databases and not have basically an inflation of recipes for each combination of sources and targets. We want to keep the recipes based on the actual use case that we will support.
And so one of the recipes you alluded to is kind of microservices based. I think you were probably referring to like the event sourcing or the transaction outbox pattern that's sometimes used with Apache Kafka. It's very popular, like in the Debezium community. Is that a type of recipe that you might be looking at in the future for this application?
Correct. Transaction outbox would be one of the recipes that we would be looking for, to be ability to load database data into Kafka incrementally, and others as well, and data lake support and object store support. These are all things that we would be looking at.
Got it. And and of course you also mentioned bidirectional as well. That'll be nice to have as a recipe, because I think anybody out there who set up GoldenGate previously for bidirectional with conflict detection knows that that can be a lot of work, but to get that automated in a recipe would be great.
Great, yes, that's absolutely true. So by the way, we just finished the initializations phase, and we're now in the runtime phase. Now GoldenGate is up and running, both extract and replicate, and we give you transparency on those processes here and the operation count. We show you the stats on the operations. And let me just start a generator, so we'll see a few more operations coming through. So here I'm starting a generator that will go ahead and throw inserts, updates, and deletes against the database. So we'll see them popping up immediately here in GoldenGate as we go. And then they'll basically we can see that going on here as well. And by the way, as this is happening, let me quickly just show you that we can also go to the GoldenGate console here. So as we click, we get a deep link into the GoldenGate console. And this is showing you what GoldenGate Free has generated here. And you can see here also, this is a build for specifically for GoldenGate free. And just to emphasize, this is fully functional. We haven't taken any functionality out. It just includes the size restrictions and the inability to communicate with commercial GoldenGate.
Great demo. Thank you, Alex.
You're welcome. And here's where the all the events are coming in. So you can see as that we're processing them in extract and replicate.
Absolutely. So you said this should be available for everybody to download from Oracle Container Registry. You said roughly in the next few days?
That is correct. We're finishing up the release, so we'll let you know. We'll probably provide a blog on it once it's out, and then you can go ahead and try it out.